Recording in progress.
Good afternoon and welcome to MILLBRAE City Council special meeting agenda for October 24th, 2023. And City Clerk, if you could please do roll call.
Councilmember Pappen. Councilmember Cahalan.
Present.
Councilmember Fung.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
Here.
3 members of the City Council are present.
And
Vice Mayor is excused.
And the Vice Mayor is excused. Thank you, City Clerk. So our special meeting tonight is all about interviewing our Planning Commission applicants, and we have 5 applicants today. And to the applicants and to the public, this is how we do it here in MILLBRAE. We have an order with Andrew Chung, Samuel Chui, Maureen Davis, Albert Yam, and Stephen Lee, and yet our first applicant is the one who's not here, correct? So what we do is we have the same set of questions, the same council members ask the questions. We have about 20 minutes for each of you. But what we're going to do is make you all leave the room. But once you've been interviewed, you can stay in and listen to the people that have gone before you on that. So with that order, we'll probably start with Samuel. The other thing that I will make a request at the formal agenda, at our regular agenda, this is agenda item number 14, and that we will move it after consent calendar so that you don't have to stay here all night wondering what's going on that. So you should be done. We've got a lot of proclamations tonight. I'm thinking, let's say 8 o'clock on that. So with that, if we could have Samuel, and help me with the pronunciation. Samuel, please join us, and the other applicant, if you could please follow our city clerk, Elaine Tran, and we will see you shortly. And you get to come up to the hot seat up here. Although we're a pretty friendly bunch.
Excellent.
So you are being videotaped, and people do watch this because Planning Commission is, like all of our committees and commissions, very critical. The other thing about these mics is they work really well when you're kind of close to it.
Okay.
But I'll flag you. If we tend to lose you or if we have any transmission problems, I'll interrupt you. My apologies in advance.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, welcome to our Planning Commission interviews. And I am going to give you the first one. What interested you in applying for the Planning Commissioner position for the City of MILLBRAE, and how did you prepare for the interview today? And please be specific. You got 10 questions.
10 questions. Wow. Okay. So I'm very passionate about building resilient and sustainable cities. And I'm also passionate about ensuring that city policies or government is very accessible. Fortunately, I have a day job that allows me to contribute to both of those things. I'm a father of 2 very young girls. I was excited to read the update to the general plan, MILLBRAE 2040. In 2040, my girls will be about 20 years old, and I want them at that time to say, hey, this is my home. I want to stay here for a very long time. So I want to invest my time, it's a time investment on my part, to help contribute to influencing the built environment in such a way that for the next generations to have a built environment in which to thrive and live.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel, for joining us
Thank
this
you.
evening. Thanks for coming in. What aspects of your academic, work background, or experiences qualify you to be a City of MILLBRAE Planning Commissioner? What is your understanding of the roles and responsibility of a Planning Commissioner?
All right. So my undergraduate degree was in architecture with a minor in structural engineering and city planning and regional planning. My graduate degree was a Master's of Science in structural engineering. With that background, I am currently a project manager working for the City and County of San Francisco. My experience has been on managing and developing a range of capital improvement projects. Anything from a small pump station in the heart of residential neighborhoods, all the way to most recently a 16-story city office building in Civic Center, and anything else in between, fire police stations, libraries, recreation centers. It's my passion. I think with that background, I am well versed with the vocabulary of planning, design, and construction. I understand the process and procedures of holding and facilitating public meetings very well, including the Browns Act. And of course, I have a working familiarity with California planning codes, such as CEQA, and other ways in which the zoning laws affect the planning of the city.
Excellent. The role of the Planning Commission often requires making difficult choices on development projects, sometimes counter to opinions offered by project applicants and members of the public to the Commission during the public hearings. How would you make your decision in such a setting?
Do you mind repeating the last?
Let me try that one more time.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Whenever you need it. The role of the Planning Commissioner often requires making difficult choices on development projects, sometimes counter to opinions offered by project applicants and members of the public to the Commission during the meeting. How would you make your decisions in such a setting, in the face of sometimes difficult choices and oppositions and the like?
Of course. So the Planning Commission's main role, in my mind, is to balance individual rights with the public's interest. And as with all and any approval bodies, we have to make sometimes unpopular decisions for the greater good or the good of the public. As a project manager, in my current role, in my day job, I am often having to ask questions so that I could have the complete set of facts. And so that I can make a decision that's based on merit and to make those decisions impartially. I think as with city government, as a civil servant, transparency, accountability, and responsiveness are very important to me. And it's part of my job. If I were so selected, I would definitely bring those tenets to my assignment here.
Right? Facts are important, especially to City and County of San Francisco.
Absolutely.
And to the DPW. The city recently adopted its general plan and the downtown and El Camino Real specific plan. The city adopted the MILLBRAE Station area specific plan in 2016. How do you view the city's future with these policy documents? And what do you think is the Planning Commissioner's role in shaping that future?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm very excited about both the general plan and the specific plans related to the El Camino, to revitalize or reimagine it as a Grand Boulevard. I'm also excited about the specific plan at Gateway. I think it sets a direction and guideline with which planning commissioners and citizens and residents of MILLBRAE could look at how decisions will be made on individual developments. The planning process consists of roughly two types of decisions, legislative and quasi-judicial. Much of the legislative types of decisions are made here at the council, such as updates or amendments to the general plan. And the job of the Planning Commission is to apply those legislative decisions and policies towards individual decisions that are brought to the Planning Commission and be an advisory board to the City Council.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pappen has joined us. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
apologies for being tardy here. The next question. The Planning Commission is typically presented with technical information, plans and reports related to development projects that come before the Commission for action. How comfortable are you in reviewing highly technical information and considering such information in your decision-making?
To that question, I think in that respect, I'm ready day one. I'm a licensed architect and a licensed civil engineer in the state of California. So my technical background is to read plans, specifications, and to understand how, to really understand how projects are being developed. I'm committed to studying the staff's report before the meeting. I empathize a lot with city staff, myself being one. So I think there needs to be a lot of trust between the Planning Commission and staff on helping accumulate or collate the facts of the decision, and if needed, to inquire with staff questions ahead of time so that the Planning Commission can make an informed decision at the meetings.
Thank you. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain relationships and ties which do not fall under the strict definition of a conflict of interest or a related party. Do you feel public disclosure is appropriate of what may not necessarily be illegal, but may be viewed as improper, important, or excessive? Okay, I think that's a badly written question, but.
Do you mind rereading
Yeah,
the question?
I'm sorry. This is really convoluted, and I think the staff is here. There are certain relationships, pre-existing relationships you may have, that do not fall under specific definition of conflict of interest. I think what we're trying to get at here is, how do you feel about public disclosure? It's generally defined as the inference of a conflict of interest. How would you feel? Again, you mentioned transparency, that's what's key here. So
for my regular job with St. County San Francisco, I do have to fill out a Form 700 or Statement of Economic Interest. So this will be no different. I would form out a separate Form 700 should I be selected for this position. The question of ethic is difficult. We see on the news that there could be bad actors up and down it doesn't matter what the ranks are. And it's important, as a resident, I would want to make sure that the approval body or the decision-making body hold the highest level of integrity. One litmus test I ask myself is whether, say it's a gift, for example, like a gift offering, whether this gift would be offered had I not been in this position. If the answer is no, or probably not, then it could be a potential conflict of interest, and it's best to stay away, or at the very least to disclose it. Having worked at Public Works most recently, we are very comfortable with telling people who offer even a cup of coffee and say no. That's just not what I could accept. And it does get easier. It does get easier the longer you are in the position where you have to say no to potential, so that there isn't an optics of influence when commissioners make their decisions on particular items.
thank you.
Councilwoman McHalen.
Great.
Good evening.
We're at the 10-minute mark.
Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
How do you perceive the role of planning commissioner in terms of maintaining the architectural character and standards of specific neighborhoods and commercial districts in design review?
Do you mind repeating that question one more time?
How do you perceive the role of the planning commission in terms of maintaining the architectural character and standards of specific neighborhoods and commercial districts in your design review?
I think this is where the Planning Commission needs to work hand in hand with the City Council. Like I mentioned, or in my response to the previous question, the planning process involves both legislative and quasi-judicial decision-making. In the case of Planning Commission, the Planning Commission would apply their expertise, their ability to assess information impartially on understanding how the goals of the city would be addressed or applied to particular development decisions. I think it's important that proposed developments are fitting with the character of the neighborhood. That's often nebulous and hard to define, but I know that the city is going to be working on a residential design standard, for example. I think that would, if that standard is done right, i.e. one which involves the voices of the community, it would be a great guideline by which the Planning Commission could model as they make their findings and as they make their decisions about individual developments.
How would you approach forming your decision on a project that you personally like, but maybe inconsistent with the city development policies and standards?
Well, as a planning commissioner, I would refrain from asserting my personal opinions, preferences, or taste. I think I watched a recent planning commission where the project sponsor proposed a mission revival style building. It was a large development And the intent of the project was because it's going to be a multi-generation family. If I were the project proposer, I wouldn't be as concerned that none of the planning commissioners like mission revival style. I trust that the city council will select planning commissioners who have a high level of integrity and be able to look past their taste or their personal preferences. What I would be concerned with is that there's at least one commissioner on the dais who understands the approach or would approach the problem the same way I did. And in that case, they did. It doesn't matter that whether they lived in a multi-generation family or not, or whether they liked the architecture or not. It was about the facts of the case, the need for the project, and on balance, what the opposition had to say, and whether those opposing views were addressed with the project. So that, just by way of an example, I would be very certain that I would set aside my personal preferences when making decisions.
Okay, this is a long one, so
Okay.
I'll read it. Let me know if you need another
Okay.
round.
Thanks.
So please describe what you think the future of MILLBRAE should look like. Think about the physical building form and shape of the city, the transportation network, the architecture and aesthetics. Preserving the national and scenic environment, what would you like to see remain the same, and what would you like to see different?
Oh, that's a great question. Do I have an hour for that? MILLBRAE is in size, it's small. It's about 3.28 square miles with a population of 22,000. But even though it's small, it's very rich in its topography and its different types of architecture styles, and even in use. We talk about mixed use a lot. And what drew me to move to MILLBRAE was that it's a hub for intermodal transportation. You have the airport, BART, Caltrains. It's just a great place to be. There are tons of potentials for this to be a pedestrian-oriented, intermodal transportation-oriented location. Growth is inevitable. I believe economic development is one of the elements. It's one of the optional elements in the general plan update. And again, it's about balancing economic development with smart growth, making sure that projects that are approved or developments that are approved are not only looking at the short term, but also looking way into the future. I'm more excited about the policy or the goal about Broadway. I think there was a goal about creating a pedestrian-oriented, high-quality mixed-use district along Broadway. As a resident, that's my gateway to when I get home. It's where I do all my shopping, where I have most of my food and restaurant outings. So going back to my first response to my first question, I want MILLBRAE in 2040 or between now and then to be a place where my girls are proud to call home. A place that's safe, and one where I enjoy being connected and a part of.
Last question. This is on conflict of interest and concerns. Do you foresee any potential conflicts of interest that may or could arise during your tenure on the Planning Commission should you be appointed?
Because of my job at City County of San Francisco, I recently transferred to the International Airport. So potentially there might be items where the airport and MILLBRAE interface. Certainly I'm focused on two projects, and so if an item comes up where it requires me to decide, that affects both MILLBRAE and the airport, then I would have to recuse myself. But also because I work for the city, I have no other second employment, and I'm not interested in taking up any job, both as a planning commissioner or because it would be a potential conflict with my day job. So the only thing I can think of is with regard to interfacing with the airport.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Eduardo, how are we doing on time? You've got 2.5 minutes. Anything else you would like us to know why you are the best applicant for the Planning Commission? Or anything else you'd like to share?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm very excited. I think for me, it's a time investment. I think it's just as important or more important than setting up a college fund, for example, for my kids, so that I could help contribute and connect to building the built environment. For the past decade, my projects were funded by the emergency safety and earthquake safety and emergency bond. And so that's my bread and butter, and that's my familiarity. So when I read the general plan, I was very excited about a couple policies that spoke with city facilities, seismic upgrades, or in generally to ensure that the city has the adequate infrastructure to support the residents and businesses in case the big one hits.
That's very exciting. And words to my ears as our emergency services person and the vice mayor too. So
Okay.
good to hear that. With that, I thank you. You may sit and join us, or if you don't want to sit and listen to everybody else, it will be taped. We'll come back at regular council, hopefully close to 7 o'clock. And then there's 7 proclamation and presentation. So it'll be a little bit after that.
Thank you, council member, for your time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Our first candidate wasn't here, so we started with candidate second on the list. He was our first. Oh, Andrew Chung. And I don't know if Maureen is next or if Andrew will be next. I guess Maureen will be next. Has our 5th candidate arrived? Okay. It is work time. Welcome, Miss Maureen Davis. You've been through this before, so just to refresh, we've got 10 questions and 20 minutes, and we're going to rotate the questions around on here, and we look forward to hearing.
Great, thank you. The last 2 times I've read a little statement because Councilmember Cahalan doesn't probably know me from Adam yet. I'd love to share a little background. Is that okay?
We didn't do that for anybody else. Why don't you hang on to that, and if we have time at the end, then you can wrap up with that.
All right.
Okay? Only because we're trying to keep everybody exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
but I appreciate that you came prepared. Okay, I have question 1. What interested you in applying for the planning commissioner position today? Let me rephrase this. Why would you like to continue as a planning commissioner?
The work I've been doing for the last 7 years has been very rewarding. I can actually peek into my notes. I can rattle off some of the stuff I've had the privilege and honor of participating in. We've had the updates to the general plan and the housing element. We did the creation of a downtown specific plan. We made updates to the MSASP. And I've also worked on dozens of updates and remodels to homes. And I also got to be the planning commission representative to the recreation center rebuild, and seeing that all in its done glory is awesome. So I'd like to continue to do those things.
And that's a great way of building your bio in there.
Well, it helps to have some notes.
I would
right?
say the active transportation plan too. You've kind of
There's
been along.
another. They're all parts in there, because I couldn't rattle off everything. I was trying to keep this one short.
You have done a good job. Councilman Fung.
Good to see you, Ms. Davis. Welcome back.
Thanks.
This question is written more for new applicants, but my job is to ask you the same question anyway, so hope you don't mind. What aspects of your academic work background or experiences qualify you to be a MILLBRAE Planning Commissioner? What is your understanding of the role and responsibility of a Planning Commissioner?
Sure. I'll start with my background. My educational background is in social sciences and geography. I have a BS in social sciences from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I studied geography. Go Mustangs. I studied geography abroad in the UK and did graduate work in geography at Cal State Hayward. I have extensive coursework in history, the social, natural, and earth sciences, as well as environmental studies. I worked for the U.S. Forest Service at a research station in Berkeley. My research focused on land use changes and their environmental impacts in two disciplines, urban forestry and hydrology. After that, I worked at the Institute for the Future in Palo Alto. IFTF helps its clients strategically prepare for the long-term future, 3 to 10 years out. My research focused on forecasting the impacts of demographic changes, economic changes, emerging technologies, geographic shifts, and lifestyle changes, and of course, then their relevance for corporations, nonprofits, and government organizations. And 9 years ago, I got my real estate license, and while I'm often introduced as a realtor, I think it's important to remember I'm not just a realtor. My real estate experience is important, but it's not the only experience I bring to the table. And what do I understand about the job? To me, it is finding a balance between private property rights and the public good. And it's about helping MILLBRAE evolve as we move forward, whether it is a house remodel, one house at a time, or the downtown and our specific areas, but it's about moving us forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much. The next one here also, if you can share the context of your previous work would also be helpful. The role of the planning commissioner often requires making difficult choices on development projects and sometimes countering to the opinions offered by the project sponsors and the members of the public. How would you, or what have you, made your decisions in the past in such a setting?
Right, so the planning commissioners don't just get to make decisions willy-nilly. We have to follow the guidelines, we have to follow ordinances, we have to follow state law. And so it's not just about, well, what I think is good or bad. And so I lean on those things as well. I also lean hard on staff recommendations because they're the ones who have shepherded these projects through either months or years of reiterations and all that. And yeah.
Thank you. The city recently adopted its general plan and the downtown and El Camino Real specific plan. The city adopted the MILLBRAE Station area specific plan in 2016. How do you view the city's future with these policy documents, and how do you think it's the planning commissioner's role in shaping that future?
I think our future is very bright, first of all. The changes we've made to the general plan and the downtown specific plan, the MSASP, I mean, the station area is already coming up. I mean, we can see how that's growing, bringing jobs and housing and commerce to our town. If we can get the downtown plan and the El Camino plan rolling, it's be transformative. I hope I live long enough to see El Camino transformed. I can't wait. I believe our future is very bright with all the changes that we've made to those documents you've brought up.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Hello,
Hey.
I'm up. The next question. The Planning Commission is typically presented with technical information, plans and reports related to development projects that come before the commission for action. How comfortable are you in reviewing technical, highly technical information and considering such information in your decision-making?
I've been reading these documents now for 7 years, and I feel pretty comfortable with them.
Thank you. Next one. I have to kind of rework this one. It wasn't very well written. There are certain relationships and ties that don't fall strictly under the definition of a conflict of interest. How do you feel about public disclosure of what might be perceived as a conflict of interest in any of your decision-making as a planning commissioner?
Sure, transparency is always important, and I can tell you that as a planning commissioner, I have to go through the ethics training so is it 2 years or so? But as a realtor, it's pretty much the same training in that, worrying about conflicts of interests. It's pounded into my head to make sure that you bring up any conflicts. I don't have any problem with it whatsoever.
Thank you very
Even
much.
perceived, that's the key. If somebody thinks it might be a problem, it is a problem, even if it isn't.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon,
Hi
my
there.
turn. How do you perceive the role of planning commissioner in terms of maintaining the architectural character and standards of specific neighborhoods and commercial districts?
So our design guidelines, and we're going to have more formal ones soon, do ask that things be compatible with the neighborhood. But I think it's important for us to realize that our neighborhoods do also have to evolve. Needs have changed since the 40s, 50s, and 60s when most of that housing stock was built. So I think we have to be sensitive to that they're not going to keep looking exactly the same, that we should be able to evolve as a community.
Instead of would here, I'll say, how do you?
All the verbs are wrong.
Yeah. How do you approach forming your decision on a project that you personally like, yet is not consistent with city development policies and standards?
Right, so I know that in my role, my personal opinion matters little to none. So that wouldn't be a problem. If it's aligned with city goals, I mean, all of us planning commissioners serve at the pleasure of you, and and have been elected to represent the people. So if your goals are in that direction, I'm going in that direction.
Last one for me. Please describe what you think the future of MILLBRAE should look like. Think about the physical building form and shape of the city, the transportation network, the architecture and aesthetics, preserving the natural and scenic environment. What would you like to see remain the same, and what would you like to see be different?
Can we just point to all of the wonderful documents we've already talked about? They have the vision in them. MILLBRAE is a very sweet and small community. We're lucky to have some open space. We should always try and preserve those kinds of things. If you listen to my background, there was a lot of environmental and natural history, natural resources kinds of things in there. And those things are very important. And so working, to make sure that our community is climate resilient. And, I work for the Forest Service. I care about trees. We need a strong urban forest canopy. We need all kinds of things like that. But the general plans are moving us in a direction where we can have a denser, more vibrant downtown area while maintaining neighborhoods surrounding on the hills. If we can find a way to effectively get people back up the hill, it's easy enough to walk downhill, but I would like to see a way for us to walk back up or get back up the hill easier so we could have a more walkable community. But I think our current planning docs are all moving in the right direction.
Last question, and then you'll have time.
Okay, I think I've read most of it, so.
Conflict of interest and concerns. Do you foresee any potential conflicts of interest that may or could arise during your tenure on the Planning Commission?
I mean, they can always arise. You never know. But if my next door neighbor wants to do a remodel, I'm off, right? I can't make a comment on that. And so on from there. If it's a dear friend, I wouldn't even know about, regardless of the neighborhood, probably would have to recuse myself. But I'm keenly aware of what conflicts might be, and I will recuse when appropriate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you've got some more time. If there's anything you'd like to say, why should we reappoint you to the Planning Commission?
Well, I hope that you've been happy with the work I've been doing, and I would just like to continue. I think I found my niche in terms of volunteering here in MILLBRAE. I think this is what I'm pretty good at. I hope so, and I'd just like to keep doing it.
I would say you're pretty good at all of the hats that you wear in volunteering around the city. With that,
I think,
Council?
well, I think time-wise, you could actually do your intro if you'd like.
That's okay. You heard half of it. I mean, we'll just do the last paragraph.
There we
How
go.
about that? We'll wrap it up with, I love MILLBRAE. It's my home and I care about its present and future. I volunteer my time in the community, as you just mentioned. I'm on the boards for the Friends of the Library and the MILLBRAE Community Foundation. I support our wonderful service organizations, educational organizations, and do what I can when the city asks for volunteers. My work on the Planning Commission has been incredibly rewarding, and I'd very much like to continue. So, thank you.
thank you.
All right.
As you know, you may sit and listen, or you can come back. I think we're going to be on this around 8 o'clock, but every time I think something happens.
I'll be coming back. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We might have time to eat something tonight. There's food in the back. Welcome, Mr. Yam. I know you've been up here before. You're a little bit taller. You might want to move that microphone up. There we go.
Testing.
Okay, so we've got 20 minutes and 10 questions, and if there's time left over, we'll give you a little why we should pick you. First question, what interested you in applying for the Planning Commission position for the City of MILLBRAE, and how did you prepare for today's interview? And please be specific.
Okay, I moved to MILLBRAE recently. I'm a homeowner in MILLBRAE. I think Planning Commission has a very important role for the city. Actions are long-lasting, can leave a long-lasting footprint that impacts the future of the city and future generations. And also, secondly, I think personally, I would like to see certain development in the city that I want to, if I am given the opportunities, I would like to, advocate for those changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yam. Thanks for joining us today. What aspects of your academic, your work background, or experiences qualify you to be a MILLBRAE Planning Commissioner? And what is your understanding of the roles and the responsibility of a Planning Commissioner?
Yeah. First of all, my background is not really in Planning Commission, but I have a strong background in finance, and also I have a strong background in data. I believe that prepared me well in terms of finding evidence-based solutions for a problem. Secondly, how did I prepare for today? The second part.
What is your understanding of the roles
Okay, yes.
and responsibility of a Planning Commissioner?
Yes, the Planning Commissioner's role is to provide recommendation and kind of an advisory to the City Council for the basically long-term planning for the city, including remodeling or building of private homes, including the development for large-scale complex projects, such as, anything related to new apartment complex or everything, surrounding the transit area along MILLBRAE Avenue. It also includes certain urban development like, signage, parklets, etc.
The role of the Planning Commissioner often requires you to make difficult decisions on development projects. Sometimes it's not popular to, or even contrary to the project applicants and members of the public. How would you make those decisions in such a public setting?
I think two principles. Number one is fairness. I think not just a fairness to the applicant, but fairness to the surrounding environment, neighbors, and whatnot. Secondly, I think the lesser of private personal bias, the better. So thinking about the non-biased, evidence-based decision-making process. Also, communication is key. I think, how you gather the opinions of the public, of the residents, how you communicate with the applicants, how you communicate with the staff, which is really important part of supporting the work of the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yam. One more question. The city recently adopted its general plan and downtown and El Camino Real specific plan.
Mm-hmm.
The city adopted the MILLBRAE Station Area specific plan back in 2016. How do you view the city's future with these policy documents? And what do you think is the Planning Commissioner's role in shaping the future of our city?
Yeah, I think when you have a long-term project like this, there are two things that are really important. Number one, the outlook, how that's going to change the future, and number two, the finance, how it's going to be paid by, supported by the project. I think there is a lot of opportunities and excitement surrounding these projects. The new development around the transit area. And I think, El Camino and MILLBRAE downtown Broadway requires a lot of, not requires, but, there is a lot of room for future development. I'm looking at, our, neighbor city, Burlingame, how they, in the Burlingame downtown area with new office building being built right now, you can see that they have a vision of how the city wants to progress, how the city evolves. And I think, recently I've done a lot of research, understanding about the city, about how the commercial activities in the city, about the expenditure, finance, and all of that. So I think, there are definitely a lot of opportunities to create great things.
Where am I here? Hi, Mr. Yam.
Hello.
The next question. The Planning Commission is typically presented with technical information, plans, and reports related to development projects that come before the commission for action. How comfortable are you in reviewing highly technical information and considering such information in your decision-making?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I'm a believer of teamwork. I think we have a strong team here at the city. I think I've attended a couple of meetings, the Planning Commission meetings, impressed by the work of the staff. Personally, even though that wasn't my background, but lately I've done a lot of researches surrounding like zoning, planning, CEQA, and that sort of things. So it's a learning curve for me, but I believe I'm someone who, and I've done a lot of researches throughout my life. A lot of projects require, front-end researches and also like supporting an argument, supporting a project, validating the use case for a project. So I am willing to learn, happy to learn, but I also know I have strong support from the city, from the other fellow planning commission, and I believe I can bring a fresh perspective to the commission.
Okay, thank you. Next question. There are certain relationships with and ties which do not fall under the strict definition of a conflict of interest. How do you feel about public disclosure of even the suggestion of a conflict of interest?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I understand this particular role has a really strict code of ethics. So the Roberts Code of Order, Brown's Act, Form 700 disclosing personal interest, and I think to be honest, with such an important role, I think you have to have strong ethics and governance in place, and I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How do you perceive the role of planning commissioner in terms of maintaining the architectural character and standards of specific neighborhoods and commercial districts in your design review?
Yeah, I get that. I have, okay, my experience is usually on the other side. I have done renovation for my own home previously, that have a, looser guideline. Recently, I have done a couple of building permits understanding that part, about the facade of a building, about the look of the environment, of the neighborhood. There is a strong code to follow. And I think, that kind of gives MILLBRAE its charm in terms of, maintaining that. And I am an advocate for that.
How would you approach forming your decision on a project that you personally like, but is not consistent with city development policies and standards?
Yeah, well, that's no brainer. I mean, I mentioned before, you have to put your personal bias on the side. Number one, I think, if it's a clear violation of the codes, of the municipal code, of the local ordinance, then that's a no-go. If it's not in a violation of those codes, but there are there are questions surrounding this application, then it's like any other situations where you have to have a discussion with your colleague, share your opinion, share what you're thinking, and also at the same time, understanding the other person's perspective. And at the end of the day, remembering the North Star is the planning and long-term future of the city. And I think, that usually, that hopefully that would bring consensus among, the discussion.
One more from me.
Huh?
One more from me.
Sure.
Okay. Please describe what you think the future of MILLBRAE should look like. Think about the physical building, form and shape of the city, the transportation network, the architecture and aesthetics, preserving the natural and scenic environment. What would you like to see remain the same, and what would you like to be different?
Yeah, I like, I mentioned before, I like the charm of MILLBRAE as a, quaint, small city. That part, I wish that would continue. Safety is a big concern. I mean, not a concern, safety is a big focus. Of course, I moved here, I have my little ones, I want to raise my family here, so I want it to be a safe environment. I think, MILLBRAE being the hub of two major public transport system, there's a lot of, actually, if you consider the airport, 3 major transport systems. There is a lot of opportunities on that front. How are we going to, in a way, there is a lot of resources in place to thrive as a city. I think, one of that I hope, this is something that we could exploit and, take advantage of. At the beginning of the interview, I talked about my, personally, I have a certain views about MILLBRAE. I think, personally, I hold, I'm concerned about climate change, climate impact. I would like to see us, doing more on that front. I was recently studying the Boost program with South City, how they got, they were applying for they found 15 different grants that they could apply for to help them, create more parks and whatnot. And I think, they got one of the biggest grant in the city history by going through this. And, these are the things I think could really help the city, could really boost the environment, and probably something everybody likes. So, I think that would be something that I'm really interested in pursuing.
Thank you. Last question, and you're doing great on time. Conflict of interest issues and concerns. Do you foresee any potential conflicts of interest that may or could arise during your tenure on the Planning Commission should you be appointed?
I don't work in the industry. To be honest, I'm probably the odd one here that have, not quite a lot of, background in that. I'm not, planning on buying another house. I'm pretty happy with, I just finished all the building permits that I needed. So, personally, I don't think I can't think of anything at this point.
Very good. So we have a little bit more time, and we'll just let you close in. Why are you the best candidate for the Planning Commission?
I think, you're going to find some best candidates in the room. I might not be one, but I think, I've talked to a couple of them, and I think, they're all enthusiastic about this job or, willing to help and, volunteer for the city. So in many ways, I think, in good hands. But personally, like I mentioned, I think I can bring a fresh approach. My background in finance and numbers oriented, I'm pretty good at that. I'm pretty confident in that. And yeah, I think, I'm just happy to be here and speaking with you guys.
Well, thank you so much. So now you may sit and join us. We've got potentially two more candidates on that. And then, as I said, we'll bring this back right after consent calendar, which I'm thinking is around 8 o'clock, but I'm always wrong when I predict time.
Thank you. Thank you, council member. Thank you, mayor. Thank you, city staff.
Thank you. So next is Stephen Lee. And welcome. We're going to let you test the mic. It works best if you're pretty close, especially if you're wearing a mask, and we are taping. So, very good. Whatever you are comfortable with, we are happy with. So 10 questions, 20 minutes. Different council members will ask you questions, and we'll start with me. What interested you in applying for the Planning Commissioner position for the City of Millbrae, and how did you prepare for this interview today? And please be specific.
I've been living in Millbrae about 20 years.
Go closer to the mic.
Is that on?
It's on. It likes to be pretty close.
Oh, okay. Is it better? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit closer.
Closer. Okay. How's that?
There you go.
Okay. Well, I've been living in Millbrae almost 20 years. I think now is my opportunity to serve the community, bring good things and economic benefit to the city. And we do need lots of money to upgrade our parks, our roads. So that's the primary motivation for me to become a planning commissioner to bring good things to our city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
I got the next 3 questions. What aspects of your academic, your work background, and experiences qualify you to be a Millbrae Planning Commissioner? What is your understanding of the roles and responsibility as a planning commissioner?
Well, I have very extensive real estate background. I'm an independent broker. I've been doing for 38 years. I handle anything simple as a single family house, apartment building, mixed-use property, commercial property. I do have quite a bit of experience in property management as well. I even took 1 year to learn building code to familiarize myself, make sure the building that I manage is fully compliant. As far as development, I help different people in the past. The first project I involved was a mixed-use property at the corner of Locken and Pine. Ground floor is 4-unit commercial, and upstairs is 3-story residential. The second one I did was on the corner of Clay and Polk Street, very busy area. 2-story underground parking, ground floor commercial and 5-story residential. And then I went on to expand my own house in the city. It was a 1,000 square feet home. I managed to expand to 3,000 square feet for my family use. And as far as property management, I dealt with the city often enough that I earn my respect. So I'm closely work with all the government officials, make sure that everything is done in a correct fashion.
Thank you. Next question is, the role of the planning commissioners often requires making difficult decisions on the development projects. Sometimes it's counter to the opinion offered by the project applicants or even members of the public. How would you make your decision in such a public setting?
Well, I would base on the municipal code, and just like building code, we have set of rules and regulation we have to comply. I know it's a very difficult decision for lots of time because neighborhood might be opposing and might be some other people saying bad things about it, but we respect the property right. Every owner owns the property, they are entitled a bundle of right in real estate, so to speak. And so we respect that. It doesn't matter they're going to build something really modern or something that they want to expand, as long as they fully comply with the municipal code. I have no problem. I'm very open-minded, and I don't discriminate anybody. That's part of my real estate practice. I'm colorblind, so to speak. As long as you, the property owner and the architect and the engineering come up with a good plan, fully complies, I have no objection whatsoever.
Thank you. The city recently adopted its general plan and the downtown and El Camino Real specific plan. The city also adopted the MILLBRAE Station area specific plan in 2016. How do you view the city's future with these guiding documents, policy documents? And how do you see is the planning commissioner's role in shaping the future of our city?
I think it is very important whoever's sitting in the planning commissioner, they should have the long term, I mean, we're looking at 20, 30 years down the road to make the public aware of what we're doing, also attract the right kind of project, right kind of usage, the best use of land to better our community. So also bring in tax dollar to make our city more efficient.
Welcome, Mr. Lee. I have the next two questions. The Planning Commission is typically presented with technical information, plans, reports related to development projects that come before the commission for action. You read the building codes, so I'm sure this is going to be better for you. How comfortable are you in reviewing highly technical information and considering such information in your decision-making?
Well, when I was in high school, I took a couple years of architect drawing. Back then, there was no CAD. It's all done manually. And since I have some development experience, including my own house, I can simply feel comfortable to read plan without any question, unless it's a very complicated matter. Then I will, get advice from the staff to help me to get clarification that matter.
Thank you. The next question. There are certain relationships and ties which do not fall under strict definition of conflict of interest. How do you feel about disclosing what may be perceived as a conflict of interest?
Well, this is a major concern when I thinking about applying the commissioner position. And throughout my life as a real estate broker, I always try to be fair with everybody. And I will fully disclose any financial conflict of interest. And even if I have to lease a commercial property in City of MILLBRAE, I will consult with the attorney and the staff, make sure I'm doing the right thing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. I have the next three questions. How do you perceive the role of the planning commissioner in terms of maintaining the architectural character and standards of specific neighborhoods and commercial districts in the design review?
Well, like I say, I respect all the owners' right as long as they comply with the city code, the municipal code. I have no objection whether they have something is very modern or very old-fashioned. I do not discriminate any design. In fact, that will make our city more interesting to have a different type of property available.
How would you approach forming your decision on a project that you personally like, yet is inconsistent with city development policies and standards?
I will not put my personal opinion in any of the project presented to the planning commissioner. It is not up to me to make personal opinion. It's all based on the municipal code.
Please describe what you think the future of MILLBRAE should look like. Think about the physical building form and shape of the city, the transportation network, the architecture and aesthetics, preserving the natural and scenic environment. What would you like to see remain the same, and what would you like to be different?
Well, I'd like to see more opportunity for investors to come in to invest into city of MILLBRAE. As far as any historical, any landmark, I'd like to see that being preserved to let our children, our grandchildren, or anybody interested to come in the city. It become attraction point, also attract tourists to come into the city, not just visit those sites, but to bring business, spend money in the restaurant, do shopping in Safeway or Trader Joe. It's all about benefit the city.
Thank you. Last question. And you've kind of already answered this one, Councilwoman Pappen asked you, but this is specifically to you and MILLBRAE. Again, you kind of answered it. Is it another conflict of interest and concerns issue? Do you perceive any potential conflicts of interest that may or could arise during your tenure on the Planning Commission should you be appointed?
No, I don't see any potential conflict of interest.
So you have gone, you've got some time left. Tell us why you think you would be a great, or why you should, let me rephrase. Why should we choose you to be on the Planning Commission?
Well, based on my extended knowledge and skill set from real estate, some extended development experience, also the fact that I like to see more business come in town. I mean, I've been living in 20 years, I see lots of good improvement, lots of business come in town, and that brings money into the city of MILLBRAE and also create a good image to the world because people know where San Francisco is, but not many people know where the MILLBRAE is. And we are right next to the airport. We should take a benefit out of that to bring in tourists, bring in not just the local tourists, but all over the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, I think, did our fifth candidate arrive? Okay. If not, then we finished very quickly today. Our regular council meeting starts at 7 o'clock, and we've got a number of presentations that will happen. So I think that this is going to come back right after consent calendar. You're welcome to sit and stay or come back, watch us on TV and come on back for that. But thank you.
Thank you.
So, City Clerk, City Manager, should we give it a few more minutes or should we adjourn until we come back for the regular City Council meeting?
Mayor, my recommendation is to adjourn and come back at 7 o'clock.
Very good. So, the City of MILLBRAE Special City Council meeting for Planning Commission interviews is adjourning at 6:06 p.m. We will be back at 7 p.m.